Detroit basketball. So I just got off stream, literally just shut off the camera, and I come to find that the Philadelphia 76ers are down by 50 to the Chicago Bulls, while the Detroit Pistons have now extended their win streak to 7 against the Clippers. This is insane. The Detroit Pistons are firmly in the driver's seat of the 6th seed. They are not going to be in the play-in, it looks like. I'd be very, very surprised if they fell into the play-in at this rate. They may be looking at home court. That would be the mission for Detroit now. And we just got to talk about this basketball team, so let's just get into it. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by June. You know the drill. This one is just going to be off the dome piece. I literally have no notes. I literally just thought of doing this video, and I'm just getting it in the can because I'm very, very excited about this team. Jalen Duren is in the middle of the court, holding up 7 fingers. This team has been rolling lately. They've been kicking ass, and it is largely because of their defense, but their offense is starting to come around in a real way. One of the interesting things about the Pistons is when you look at their roster, it really is just, it's sort of the Cade Cunningham is just the axis upon which this entire thing rotates. He has become so good and so effective. He's become an unbelievably good leader for this team. Insanely good playmaker, obviously. He's physical enough. He doesn't really get to the line nearly as much as you'd like, but this guy is a great playmaker. He's a great scorer. He's just a problem because of his size, because of the moves that he likes to go to. He's really got it down to a science what moves he wants to have in his arsenal. And yeah, he's just becoming a problem in a real way for defenses. And if you look at the rest of this team, man, I mean, really, the fact that they've made it to 31 wins at all, I mean, when you went into this season, you were hoping, like, if the Pistons can get to 25 wins, maybe, like, 27, like, that's a success story for this team that was a desolate wasteland for the last 4 or 5 years. And they have come around in such a crazy way. I think part of the reason that this team is so good is because they have such a strong identity, and they have so many guys that reinforce their identity. They're not a team that's flashy. They don't have a ton of shooting. They don't blitz you with crazy offense. They just have consummate professionals. They have good pace. That's one thing I like about this team. They get out and they move. Jalen Duren is just a massive brick wall in the paint. Yes, he has his defensive limitations, but he's just been a very consistent center for them. All their role players just understand what they need to be doing in the game super well. Malik Beasley, when he gets on the court, he is just looking to jack up threes, and he makes them at a 42% clip. Genuinely, like, the best catch-and-shoot three-point shooter in the NBA this season, arguably. Tobias Harris, he's not been incredible. He's not been worth the money they paid him, but he's been good enough that the scoring he provides is accepted and appreciated. Tim Hardaway, another guy, just sort of a shoe-in with the Quentin Grimes trade for the Mavericks, and he has come around despite being a salary filler and been like another valuable scorer for this team, another high-volume three-point shooter, a guy who's not very efficient from inside the arc, but his three-point shooting, again, super valuable. When you consider that this team had pretty much none of this last year, they added 2 guys this offseason who are basically either at 40% or just below it from 3 on 5 attempts for Hardaway and almost 10 attempts a game for Malik Beasley. That is a massive scoring punch just in the way of three-point shooting that this team desperately needed. And I mean, they get contributions up and down the roster. You know, Dennis Schroeder is a solid backup, very consistent, very reliable, plays with decent pace. That's one thing you like about him. And when I say decent pace with Dennis Schroeder, I don't mean that he goes up and down the court crazy fast. I mean that he understands how to control the game because he's a veteran. He doesn't get out of control. You know, you'd look at Marcus Sasser, every once in a while he'd be a little bit sporadic, a little bit like a loose cannon, and that's not really what you're going to be getting from like a Dennis Schroeder. Asar Thompson, just awesome, only fantastic. One of the best defensive wings in the NBA, and considering his minutes, he's a very solid defender. Very long, ridiculously athletic. I don't need to explain to you why Asar Thompson is good. Again, Jalen Duren, just a monster in the paint. He's so physical, and again, he does have his limitations. He fouls quite a bit. He is not a jump shooter at all, but he's so young, and he's got an evolving set of tools to work with that honestly, I think they need to keep building around him, because he was a center who, when you look at his ceiling, he doesn't appear as a guy who could have a crazy high ceiling. But who's to say he doesn't develop like a mid-range shot in the next few years? Who's to say he doesn't develop a super consistent push shot, or he doesn't become like an Isaiah Hartenstein level playmaker? You know, these are all aspects of his game that he can sort of unlock and that he's sort of shown glimpses of. And that's very encouraging. And honestly, I just want to highlight this team because they have been just a celebration this year. They hang their hat on the defensive end, even though at this point their defense and offense have basically leveled out. For most of the season, they've been a much better defense than they have been an offense. They've never been on a win streak this long, not in the last 10 years. And they are just kicking ass now. They are going to be a tough out in the playoffs, in my opinion. If I got matched up against them and I'm the Indiana Pacers, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, or if I'm the Knicks, it's like, I'm not worried about that matchup. I'm not worried about them if I'm the Knicks in the first round. But I think the Pistons take a game, maybe 2 off the Knicks with the way they're playing right now. Again, Malik Beasley, just a dynamite shooter. You have one amazing rebounder on this team, one incredible shooter, one incredible offense to an engine, and then a couple other role players. And it just fills out this super consistent, gritty, grinding team that every once in a while goes on crazy scoring rampages with some of the players they've got. I'm not really sure what the ceiling of this conception of the Pistons roster is. I think it's really going to be hinging a lot on Ron Holland and Asar Thompson's development. Obviously, they're probably not going to be keeping their pick in this year's draft now. It's going to flip over to Minnesota from some trade from ages ago. Once they have the avenues to trade their picks going forward, once this one conveys to Minnesota, I think this team is going to have a lot of flexibility to move pieces around. You know, you could be talking about a Kevin Durant, a Devin Booker, an all-star caliber player joining the Detroit Pistons. I haven't even mentioned Jaden Ivey, by the way, who went down with a bad injury a while ago. He was looking great before he went down, and I understand that the team has technically improved since he's been out of the lineup, but I don't necessarily think that that's like a cause and effect sort of thing. I think they just needed more time to gel, and they needed more reps, and they needed to establish this culture that they have now. You know, they've got these grindy vets. You know, Beef Stew is another guy who just, he ups the tempo so much with his energy and his fighting and getting ejected. That's not great, but we like it nonetheless, because that energy is something that's valuable for a team that can galvanize your team when you're in a bit of a rut. I think this team really rallies around Stu in a way that's very meaningful. They've just been awesome. So I'm really not sure how long this has been. This has not been a very long video, not a very cohesive video. I just need to get a note out about the Detroit Pistons, because I think this team, they are now suddenly ahead of schedule with an extremely young core, a ton of flexibility, pretty much all their draft assets, and young pieces who have really not contributed that much this season, relatively speaking, who have a ton of room to grow. So in the next few years, the Detroit Pistons, they might be on the rise in a very meaningful way, and Cade Cunningham as the centerpiece of that has been unbelievable. So shout out the Pistons, shout out Detroit basketball, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one.